And around the table, I have with me a very powerful panel, one that's going to help us get some insights on the music industry, what the situation is, and what the way forward is, as we're here to seek solutions, as we understand the different dynamics. And I will introduce my guests. First, I have Edward Sigei, who's the Executive Director of the Kenya Copyright Board, or KECOBO, which is the regulator. Then I have next to me, the lady on the table, Suzanne Gashukia Opembe, who's many things. She is a board member at the Recording Industry of Kenya. She's a board member at CAMP. She's also a veteran musician. You're in the league, in the veteran league. Many of these young guys don't know you. They'll think it's just another analyst in studio. They don't know, and she will be, sharing some gems from her journey, and as well as Ezekiel Mutua, the Chief Executive Officer of the Music Corporate Society of Kenya. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. And just to get right off the bat, this is a week we have seen, it's almost like a season where we see screenshots of mobile money payments by artists who are feeling disgruntled. I mean, many of them will feel disgruntled about how much they have been paid in regards to royalties. And just as an opening comment, before we take our first break, I'd just like to know, across the table, briefly, why do you feel we are still in this situation where artists feel they're not getting value for their work and their sweat? I think I'll begin with Bwana Sigei as we come this way.
There are two factors that affect this sector. The first is capacity to collect, and then the second part is the distribution, the amount of money that goes into distribution. So while we have no doubt that CMOs can collect, as a regulator, we have doubts that they can distribute honestly. So those are the issues. So really, for me, it's corporate governance.
Is the challenge?
This is the biggest challenge, and that's why we always push compliance. We ask for compliance. We ask for reports. We ask for, so that we can be able to gauge the performance. Because if there is no compliance, and I'm in the office, in a government office, and when these things happen, my phone keeps on ringing.
So you think if there was compliance, that artists would be doing much better now?
Kabisa, I have no doubt. There is a downtown in the economy, and a number of businesses have closed, but I'm sure we would be in a far better place.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll pick it up with Daktari as well. So maybe Susan.
Yeah, I think Bwana Sigei is correct that compliance is one of the issues. But for me, historically, what I feel is one of the major issues is enforcement in the collections. Right now, as CAMP, we have distributed 50% of our collections of public performance. So we haven't even gone to broadcast. Okay, we have not gone to the matatus and everybody else. Okay, so but the whole idea of enforcement in collections is one of the main issues that we have as the CMOs, and so if we were to get the support that we required, and I know Bwana Sigei had told us that at some point some of the enforcement capacity that he had was reduced. And while I understand that, but really, at the end of the day, if it's NTV, if it's Citizen, if it's whoever it is, we need them to actually pay for play.
So
if they are not paying, and I'll tell you this, I'm a founder member of the Kenya Association of Music Producers, and when I left the board in 2014, all of the CMOs were collecting about 600 million. 600 million in 2014. And the following year, it was estimated we would collect 1 billion. Okay? We're now in 2023, and we're collecting 200 million. Okay? And we have more members. Okay? So it's 200 million spread across 50% to MCSK, and PRISC and CAMP share the other 50%. Okay? So when musicians are crying, we understand. Okay? But what is not in context is that we're not collecting $1 billion, which is what we should have collected. And I think that is where we need to really be asking ourselves, what can we do, okay? And I agree with the regulator. If there is somebody who is not complying, if there's corporate governance lacking, we must hold them to account. Why are we not holding them to account?
Okay.
We must.
And so you're saying that if the enforcement was done right.
And then also holding the CMOs to, there's two things, enforcement and then corporate governance.
Okay.
Must be there.
All right.
I agree with Mr. Sige.
It's an ecosystem, the music business, really. And there are many players. The artists themselves, the government, the CMOs, and so many players, including the consumers, broadcasters, yourselves, Matatu industry, consumers of copyrighted musical works. So it's really so many players coming in to contribute to this. To isolate it into governance issues in CMOs is to be simplistic at the very worst. Because it's a huge thing. For me, some of the factors, of course, Edward and Susan have mentioned them. I think the major issues, they have to do with the coordination between those stakeholders. For CMOs, for example, to have licenses and have licenses in a licensing regime that is predictable. We've just come from South Africa with Susan, and there they get a license for 5 years. You can predict, you can plan your business, you can plan your distribution. It is predictable. It is a stable environment. You don't give licenses for a month, for 2 months. It's not at the whims of the regulator. It is coordinated in a way where there is goodwill, presumption of good faith for people to work together. And I think this is what we need to focus this debate on. So there's the issue of licensing, which is done, of course, by the regulator. Which should be done properly, on time, predictable, and within a period of time where you can plan. Even in your business plans, you do 3-5 years. You don't do them in 2 months. So, no, let me finish. So there's the issue of licensing. Then there's the issue of enforcement, like Susan has said. CMOs do not have their own policemen, and I wish Bwana Sige was also more empowered so that Kenya Corporate Board can enforce and create awareness and sensitize users of music, the artists themselves, so that they understand their rights, and also create a culture of respecting music. And when you use music, you pay for it. Okay. There has also been lack of awareness. Then tariffs, for instance. If you set low tariffs, you collect low amounts and you distribute low. I'll give you an example. Intercon Hotel, in some years that she's mentioning, used to pay about $1 million. Okay? At one point, the regulator decided, whether there was public participation or not, but the wisdom in it, because I was not there, that's why I'm saying, I don't know it happened, that they reduced it to 100,000, and even the consumer was shocked when they got the invoice. They were like, did you invoice wrongly? Which other commodity in the market today has the prices going down? Everything is becoming expensive. So I think there is also lack of respect for musicians in the manner in which we set tariffs. So if you keep reducing tariffs during an economic time when every other commodity has the prices going up, that becomes a problem. And lastly for me, the business of copyright. The business of copyright as a creator of wealth and jobs, as something that is not just an hustle, a side hustle, but being treated seriously, and government setting the right policies to ensure that then this is also an environment that can create jobs. I think there's been also lack of that, leaving musicians to their own vagaries. Government does not fund musicians to produce their music. Government does not buy music. So when I see the obsession with the regulation in a sector where you don't fund, you don't support.
Doesn't the government have studios which are set up in
which
some
studios?
counties?
No, forget about that joke. Let's get serious.
So
there are no
joke,
studios. It's a joke. It's PR. There are no studios. The government.
I have to say that copyright is a private right.
Yes.
Okay. It is private investors who invest in the music business. Okay. So, and that's one of the things we have to. When we always say, serikali's idea. Okay. It's investors who invest in music. Okay. For instance, I may be an artist, okay, as Zanaziki, but I'm also a producer. okay? I am an investor in the music business, and I want a return on my investment. So for me, Kekobo or MCSK or CAMP or PRISC, they are like my Kenya Chamber of Commerce, okay? And that's the same as the recording industry of Kenya, which I'm a board member. We are there to represent the interests of investors in the industry.
Okay.
And those investors must get their return on investment. And this is not charity. There's this whole thing where you're helping, broke, starving artists. And that's, it's just not the fact of the music business.
Okay, and I just want to step in there briefly before Bonasige gives his comment, because we need to take a short break. Then we'll be back and continue with this conversation. I know you want to respond to some of the matters that have been brought onto the table. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.